Hey, welcome to episode 289 of our Really Awesome Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Freeman, and today's episode is called Claiming Your Voice. Claiming Your Voice. And my, my, my guest and I have something in common. We both know the pain of feeling different and being shy to speak out and shy to share our voice and share ideas and share what we believe in and what we feel is important. And although we have very different stories of why we were shy, were shy because of my disability from birth. She's shy for a whole different reason, which she was shy for a whole different reason, which she'll tell you about. But we also luckily share that we stepped outside our shyness, which isn't easy to do, and spoke up. My I don't want to give away her story, but anyway, I'll read this quote from her that I love. She says, "Without discussing different sides of an issue, we lose the chance to find middle ground. Without discussing different sides of an issue, we lose the chance to find middle ground. Talking think through open space for questions and help us move beyond polarized and familiar thinking patterns. I love conversations, talking, listening, yapping, because every exchange gives me a new perspective to consider. I love that because every exchange gives me a new perspective to consider. Please help me welcome our guest, but first, this. Let's timing, Jason. Timing, try that again. Please help me welcome our guest, but first, this.
Today's guest, Afomiya Dejene.
Well, welcome to our Really Awesome Podcast, Afomiya.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for being here. I want to go back in time to begin with. So I'll ask you. So you immigrated with your family from Ethiopia when you were 3. What are your memories of living in Ethiopia as a little kid? I ask, thinking I don't remember that much about when I was 3, but what are your memories?
I feel like memories are so vague. I would say probably like the senses of being there, the senses of having community and family. I still feel that to this day. And it wasn't really rurally developed at the time, so there's a lot of gasoline that you can smell in the air. So every time I'm in America now and I smell that scent, I always think of back home. And I think that the memories there are more my kind of senses of just remembering just little tidbits in my mind. But honestly, even with that, I feel like it's not even enough, and I do want to go back.
Then you how does a 3-year-old comprehend? Like, did you fly to the United States?
Yeah. So first it was my father that had won something called a DV lottery, which is, it's honestly the percentage chance of winning those things in Africa is such a low percentage. I think it's below 5% of people that can actually get a visa, working visa at that. with no
Wow.
limitations. So he came to America with that work visa and he just started working, started saving money. Once it hits his 5 years of being able to gain citizenship without a work visa, he applied for a marriage license with my mother in America and then flew us over here.
Wow. So had you not met your dad until you came to the United States?
He would visit, but there are always laws that stipulate kind of in regards to immigration, how long you can be outside of the country without your timeage of those 5 years being reversed. So if you're out of the country, let's say, I believe it's 3 months, you get kind of reversed back in the citizenship status by 6 months. So kind of doubles by how much you're out of the country. So he wouldn't visit us often, but I guess when I came to America is when I, started obviously forming that connection with him as a father-daughter kind of thing.
So what is it like for a 3-year-old to get on a plane
Mm.
in Ethiopia and end up in a totally different place?
Honestly, I will say that a lot of people don't believe me when I say that I remember a lot of things from that transitional point of being in Ethiopia to coming to a completely different culture in America. And I think that specific time period of why I remember so much is due to it being such a drastic change in my life. And that period of kind of stepping into a sign saying, "Welcome to Sioux Falls, South Dakota," when I came from Ethiopia, I was like, they told me I was coming to America. I thought California or something. I'm gonna be honest. I was like, South Dakota? Like, what is that? So it was very unfamiliar. And I think that I don't remember a lot of it just because I was 3 turning 4 at the time, but it was a lot for my emotions. But there was one story in particular that I remember every little detail of. It was my first fast food encounter in America, and it was the Burger King right next to the airport. Safe to say that I did not like that burger at all. I did not like that burger. But I felt a lot of emotions. I said, "If this is what America has to offer, it just," I was like, I told my mom, "Take me back." But yeah, that's the story that I'll always remember. I'll probably recite it to my kids one day, but
So you wasn't all impressed with the first thing you ate in America.
I was not. I was not.
So what was the climate like where you lived in Ethiopia?
Ethiopia's pretty it honestly depends. It's a very broad kind of land structure. We have plains, we have high mountains, we have a lot. We have deserts as well, just because 'cause we're really close to Egypt. And honestly, the area that I lived in was very a rural area, farmers' land. It was very humid, hot, very sticky. But that is almost all I can remember from those days, but once I kind of went back when I was 8 turning 9 to 10, I kind of remember a little bit more from there. But
I mean, like, let's get down to brass tacks. Did you have winter growing up?
oh, no.
Uh, oh, did you have snow where you were in Ethiopia?
No, no snow.
So even the weather was so different. What do you remember about your first winter?
My first winter, I don't broadly remember my first winter, but I do remember there was a video that my mom showed me when I was a little bit when I was I think when I first turned a teenager and I was asking a little bit more about our move to America. She showed me a picture or a video of me refusing to go outside because of the snow. I thought I would get frostbite because I seen a movie when I was in Ethiopia of somebody in the Appalachian Mountains hiking and they got frostbite and their arm got cut off. So little old me did not want my arm cut off. So I refused to go outside for a little bit.
So the food's not good and the weather gives you frostbite. And had you had you had any English in Ethiopia before you came?
No. My older sister and I we lived in a very rural area. We never lived in cities or anything. So we didn't learn English or anything. I did. I was in kindergarten at the time. I was kind of in accelerated classes at the time. And then my older sister, she was in third grade. So we both didn't learn English. But once we came to America, I actually refused to learn English until I was 6 years old. Because, for one, obviously the food was really bad and I just did not like it. The winter was terrible and I did not like that either. So I said, why even learn the language if I really want to go back? So I was pretty stubborn, I'll say that much. I was a pretty stubborn kid.
What changed when you were 6 then?
It's weird. I think a flip kind of just went into my mind and I was like, I think it's time to start learning the language. But I caught on pretty easy, which is obviously English being one of the toughest languages to learn, all the vowels and the sounds. But I caught on pretty easy. It took me a year to learn to become fluent. Reading and writing took me another year, so 2 years to learn until I was 8. But what really turned, I think, was definitely conforming to my peers around me. That definitely played a factor. I was homeschooled for a little bit, not too much, but I think that played a huge factor in what kind of turned my brain a little.
You said conforming to your peers. How would you describe that?
I think that in kind of being in my early elementary school years and then kind of pushing forward to my even middle school years, I think conforming is a huge part of your development stages, especially in your teenage years or early teenage years. Excuse me. And I think that seeing my peers talk in a foreign language that I did not understand kind of stuck out to me. And I kind of took it as a challenge. And I said, give me a year and I will learn this language. And I did. So I think it was the conforming part that got to me.
Learning a whole language in 1 year, to speak it in 1 year and then to write it in 2 years amazes me. I've taken lots of Spanish in high school and a semester in college, and I just, to me, it seems so tough to. It's hard to learn a different language.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I think that with me being 6 and not having bills or a job, I think that really takes into account the amount of time that I had to actually practice and learn. So that definitely was
Mm.
taken into account.
Mm. You talk about yourself being shy in grade school. Will you please say more about what what brought up those feelings within you?
Yeah, I think that definitely, coming from a different country, from different culture, especially with parents that aren't fully acclimatized to the culture in America. So having to be navigating the school system by myself, making sure that documents are read, making sure that everything's kind of pushed through and all that stuff at home definitely did translate into my school life or my schooling life. And I think that being in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, which I feel like everybody knows is predominantly a white institution or just not as diverse, is very limiting to somebody that is a person of color or somebody that is an immigrant on top of that. So I think the shyness definitely, or the insecure kind of factors definitely was from that specific factor. And I think that even growing out of it now is still a challenge, but I think that working through that is just a part of life. And yeah, I think, becoming very quiet, very, I would say, like, hesitant, maybe even defensive at times. I think a lot of people would call me defensive at times, as a remark, just to be, just that fear of being misunderstood was huge for me, and it still is. But I think it was in those kind of developmental years, it was huge.
What would you say? Say to like a first or second grade kid of color who has just come just immigrated from like Africa. What words of encouragement would you give them?
Honestly, I think there's so many things that you could say, and I think it definitely depends on how their home life also is, and I think there's a lot of factors that go into that. I think that a lot of first generation or even immigrants in general that have parents that don't understand the social structures in America have to take the responsibility at times of reading stuff in English to them or making sure they understand certain contracts. It's a lot for them. And I would say, honestly, taking a deep breath and making sure that you are all right as well. And that honestly, not everything falls on your shoulders and that you will be okay with the years to come. That's definitely what I would say to my past self. I could talk to her again.
It sounds like just so much to navigate and and almost needing to take on responsibilities beyond what other kids of your age were taking on in terms of translating and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Sounds like a lot.
It is. It is. And I think that's a lot of immigrant children still go through that today. And that's just working on the systems that we currently have in America to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Yeah, what are a few thoughts on how what would be a better what would be a way for that not to happen?
A better way, I would definitely say, is openness within the immigrant community. It's not just, you know, kind of like governmental structures, I would say. I think it's definitely within their communities itself, making sure we advocate for mental health, specifically for children and youth, make sure that immigrant families have resources, number one, for them to actually understand what they're kind of buying into, like rental agreements, anything regarding bills, having like a constituent liaison, making sure that these families have access to all of these resources and accommodations. And I don't think we have that enough. And yeah, I think that would be the first step, but especially the culture as well within immigrant communities with mental health and youth.
What was a constituent liaison?
A constituent liaison is kind of like a connector between two. So it'd be like a recipient or client and then an organization themselves. And then there's like a customer service rep, which would be called a constituent liaison.
And will those constituent liaisons sometimes be bilingual?
Mhm. For sure. Yeah.
That, that,
Translating documents for people that don't know English well, or even having another solution would be even having free English classes for people that are newly immigrated to America. A lot of English classes that were options for my mother when I was growing up had a lot of payment, but we were low income at the time. So it didn't really work out. And she still to this day knows broken English. She understands. But I think that if she had those resources when I was growing up, she definitely would have kind of progressed a little bit further.
hmm. I mean, thanks for sharing some ideas. If we don't have ideas of the ways things can get better, like how will they get better? So thanks for putting some ideas out there. It's powerful. What what impact have your mother and father had on who you are today?
I honestly, no words. It is a lot. And I think that everybody that does have a great relationship with their parents or even a rocky relationship and then it just kind of blossoms in how you kind of see how you've grown from those relationships is huge. I think that in anybody that's trying something new and even coming to a new country that you don't have any access to. My dad came here with no family, no immediate family in America, and no access to any resources. So even if he got the DV lottery, he gets a sponsor, and the sponsor happened to live in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. He would have to come here, live here, figure out the systems by himself with his sponsor, but the sponsor would usually be a little bit hands off. So he had to figure a lot of it out for himself. And I think that kind of shows, not even kind of, it shows courage, sacrifice, and a feeling of new beginning. And I think both of my parents being those visionaries of seeing a new life for me and my older sister, or my older sister and I, and for them to bring us here to make sure that we have those same opportunities that American children had or those in fully developed countries is amazing. And I think without them pushing me to do the very best that I can do, I don't think that I would be even sitting here doing a podcast on Awkwardly Awesome. So it's a huge deal. Even though, my mom, she had limited access to educational opportunities while she was in Ethiopia, it honestly just modeled her resilience, the fact that she can push through even if she's not as, like, now we would say as educated. It just shows her strength and due diligence of trust within my father to do right by the family. And even on my father's side, he has 2 degrees in Ethiopia. So he graduated from a university in Ethiopia in agriculture and business administration. Although that
Mm,
translate over to
mm,
American curriculum, he
mm,
could go back to school with that. But honestly, their belief in, like, the possibility of how they can come to America and change their life honestly just taught me to aim high and be adaptable and use my voice for a purpose. And I think that's why Claiming Voice is a perfect title that you chose out, Jason.
mm. It's inspiring to. It is inspiring to think of what your parents have done. Like I sometimes talk about trying something new. Like all I can think of juggling, which I don't actually want to try, but it's an example that comes to mind. But even trying something like that and saying I'm going to juggle for 10 minutes a day for a month, even that can be challenging. That little thing, let alone your mom and dad say yes. We believe in something different. We believe in new opportunities for our kids. We're going to try a new country and not just a country with a similar culture, but a country across the world. Wow, that's amazing. And your parents had to be mainly apart for 5 years. Like, yeah, your dad could come and visit, but they were apart for most of 5 years. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
It really does speak true to even their love. It really speaks true to it. And I think even being apart that much, even speaking now, being long distance is such a huge deal, and a lot of people can't handle that. And I think my parents going through that in the beginning, in the earlier stages of their marriage, just attests to, like, the kind of character that they have even within their marriage.
It's inspiring. So, 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 in grade school, you were shy and frustrated about being understood, and you could have followed that path through your life, but you chose to embark on a different path in high school. What gave you the courage, the vision? Like your parents were going from Ethiopia to the United States. That was their vision, and then you had a vision from going. You had a vision to go from shy and isolated to a member of the community to influencing people through presentations. What made you decide to say yes? I'll go on that journey.
I think that even in the beginning of me refusing to learn English just attests to my stubbornness as a person and my character. But I think I masked that a lot when I was in elementary to middle school, just so, again, the conformity aspect of it. Kids want to be liked. They want to the same as other kids. They want to be on the playground and make sure that we're all the same. But unfortunately, what gets taught at home gets brought to school by kids. So I did experience a lot of internalized or just outward racism when I was growing
Mm,
up. And I think that it did pile up within me when I kind of transcended into high school. And I didn't realize that it was happening until I kind of hit that developmental stage of my life of kind of rethinking, what do I want to do when I hit high school, or what kind of passions do I have? When people started talking about university, what do you want to major in? I think it kind of hit me of, maybe it is time to kind of reflect back and even listen to myself and what my brain is telling me, what my body is telling me. And I think doing that is a huge, huge reason why I kind of said, like, enough, no more hiding or being invisible. And I think being that nice person that I emphasized within my TEDx talk was me claiming my own kind of purpose of speaking out against injustices occurring within the world. And I think that in doing that, I have to start with acknowledging the injustices that happened within my own life growing up. And those injustices happen on the playground, if or in the classroom, where I would wear beads in my hair and people would constantly touch my hair and say, "What is that? What is that?" But it happened to be something cultural that my mom would put on me. A little taste of home, I would say. On the
Mm.
playground, if I guess my ponytail would come off. I remember we were playing kickball, my ponytail came off. And, naturally, a lot of people would assume my hair would come down. But since I had an afro hair at the time, it kind of sticked out. And I got made fun of for that a lot when I was, I believe, fifth grade. I got made fun of for that a lot. But even then, I chose to stay quiet just because I thought staying quiet or suppressing my own voice of what I believed in at the moment would keep me safer than actually speaking out about how I felt. And obviously, this was in my early kind of stages of life. So I think it's pretty natural for somebody wanting to conform to their peers and wanting to make sure that they belong to a community in some sort. So I think in high school, I genuinely said enough because I wanted to be an example for those little girls that are on that playground, that are in that
Mm.
beads in their hair, and make sure that they see me and say, okay, she can speak out against certain injustices that are happening to her own life, and I can do the same thing. And I think that having that kind of representation in the Midwest specifically, where it is predominantly white in comparison to the East or the West Coast, is a huge important thing that's driving me right now to make sure that there is representation.
You became president. You went from being so in what an isolated in grade school and middle school to being the president of the Black Student Union at your high school.
Yes. Yep.
What was that like to suddenly throw your name in the ring for a leadership role?
It kind of hit when, I will say, it was end of freshman year, a little bit into fully sophomore year. So the election period, I guess, was end of freshman year. So I was president throughout my high school career, and I did like a mentorship position for two young women so I can transition out, go into university while they transition into their leadership position. It kind of hit a little bit once the 2020 George Floyd situation hit from Minneapolis. That was definitely one of the factors that made me want to be more active within my community. And I think that in taking a leadership position, it made me feel a sort of impact. I wanted to make sure that Black culture, Black narrative, African culture was displayed within our schools. And that kind of led me to create what is called present day Culture Day. And I believe it's still going on, hopefully. I got to touch up on some principles, see what they're doing right now. But I created that just to make sure there's inclusivity and belonging.
Tell me more about Culture Day. What went on during the day?
Yeah, so my first year was pretty rocky. I had a co-chair, president as well. Me and her were kind of facilitating what should Culture Day look like, what should Black History Month February look like, and it was pretty rocky to start with, but I think we got the reins of it. I think we were like 15, 16-year-olds, so we were doing pretty good for that time period. And it kind of looked like just making sure that there are decorations around historical pieces, making sure people know the history of Black History Month, making sure people understand that if somebody doesn't want you to touch their hair for a reason, you don't touch their hair for a reason. We made sure informationals went out about Black History Month, making sure that historical devices and pieces were kind of displayed out to ad rooms during Black History Month. And then the final kind of week of the month of February, we would kind of do, well, what was it called? Like just dress up weeks, basically. So we would do one day we would do like 90s day. Tuesday we would do like a team, like a basketball team or a football team, like wear a jersey. Wednesday we would do, if you're a senior, wear your university shirt. Thursday would be Throwback Thursday. You can wear anything from the 90s, the 80s, the 70s. And then Friday would be our showcase. So the showcase was what made Culture Day so huge. And yeah, definitely Friday was the big one.
What was the showcase?
The showcase was basically a collaboration of different countries dancing. I would kind of, it took a couple of months of practice. So we would start in late December, run it through all the way until the showcase actually happens. We would have practices after school, before school, during ad room, which is a time period of studying that a lot of people would have. And we would have 10 to 15 countries perform in front of an audience of the student body and staff and faculty. And it was so beautiful. It honestly goes to show that if you put a piece of belonging or you allow people to see different perspectives of different cultures and how they represent their culture, what foods they bring out, what they wear on a daily basis, it really was super heartwarming. And I loved every single year of doing that.
Oh, wow. 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 Sounds really great.
Yeah, it was.
And
It was.
like a lot of work to put it all together too.
Yeah, it definitely was, but I think the work was definitely worth it. Definitely worth it.
So then you were inspired to apply to give the commencement address
Yes.
at your high school. What happened after you applied?
Yeah, so I believe if I remember correctly, first you would get referred. So a couple of teachers had referred me to do a speech just because they know I guess I loved public speaking just because of Culture Day. I would be the MC too. So I would just like kind of yell out into the mic and like make sure everybody's hyped up and stuff when the cultures came around. So I think a lot of teachers were like, she would be perfect for a speech. And I was like, that was kind of iffy, but I ended up applying for the speech called The Reality and Beauty of Diversity. And you kind of go in front of faculty advisors, the people that are running the graduation ceremonies, and present your speech. And I did get pretty emotional. So I think that kind of tugged on their hearts a little bit, but it was definitely a speech that I will always remember.
What what was it like speaking in front of your graduating class and the family and all of your families and
Yeah. They actually didn't know I was giving a speech. So I wanted to remain a surprise for them.
for your family?
Yeah, I did not tell them
What?
I was giving a speech. I did not tell them at all. They were pretty shocked. I asked my older sister, like my friends that weren't graduating a year prior, to record their reaction, and I watch it every now and then. I watch it. I'm like, oh my gosh, but they didn't know. And when I walked up there, they thought I was like graduating ahead of the students that were there, my peers, and I kind of like looked up at them in the beginning of my speech, and I was like, well, I'm giving a speech, you guys. And yeah, they did not know. They were laughing. And my dad was just clapping his hands and he stood up just hooray. He was very supportive at that moment. But it felt honestly like a milestone. It definitely felt like I was transitioning out of that shy person that I was when I was in elementary and middle school and kind of transitioning into, I would say, womanhood and going into university. And it definitely kind of helped me with my insecurities. It helped me navigate those kind of instances because speaking in front of a lot of people, as you know, is very nerve-wracking, and the preparation of it beforehand is very nerve-wracking in of itself. And it takes a lot of mind over matter even to speak in front of hundreds of people. especially if you don't know if they're going to receive your message correctly or well. And when I did do the message of the reality and beauty of diversity, the message itself was very anti-polarization, making sure we listen to other people, making sure that we don't just sit in an echo chamber of our own thoughts and beliefs, that we ensure that we listen to others that have different perspectives and viewpoints. And I didn't know if that would be received well in South Dakota. And I took a leap of faith, and I think the advisors took a leap of faith as well, because they saw the importance of this message in today's world.
A lot of people, including me, at times we get afraid to speak up when we see something that we feel is unjust. We just get afraid. What words of encouragement would you give people like me?
I think that a person that doesn't speak up in what they believe in or in something that is unjust, it always reminds me of a quote by Malcolm X. A man who stands for nothing is susceptible to kind of be grabbed by anything. It's not saying that a person doesn't believe in certain things. It's in my perspective, it kind of shows that if you don't claim voice to something, or you don't speak up about something, you can't expect for those certain marginalized communities to stand up for you once something happens to your community or something happens to you. It kind of speaks to the empathy of the world, of making sure that we don't lose our humanity, and making sure that because it is not happening to you, it doesn't mean that it couldn't happen to you. It honestly kind of reminds me of right now, in the crisis that we have going on in like the democratic world right now, of making sure that there's free speech or free press, making sure that nobody's kind of tied down to a box, and making sure that their voices are still heard. And when those certain communities are restricted in what they can say and what they can speak up about, and nobody wants to say anything because it is not their community, it kind of goes into a kind of circle. It goes into a circle of, if they're not speaking up, they're not going to speak up. If they're not going to speak up, they're not going to speak up. So it's kind of a snake just going at the end of its tail, and just circling around. And it happens a lot nowadays. If we see a community that we don't belong to going through oppression or going through injustice, we say that's never going to happen to us. But the funny thing is, when people consistently say that, history proves them wrong. So it speaks to that. And I think it speaks to character, of whether or not you want to push yourself to be uncomfortable. Excuse me. And I think that a lot of people tend to stay in their comfort zone because they fear pushback or they fear failure. And in doing that, I think it kind of restricts character growth and what life is truly meant to be about, which is speaking up on what you believe in and what your morality is.
Powerful words. So like this next, I mean, like the way you speak, it sounds like you're a lot older than you are. But how old are you?
I'm 20 years old.
Wow, that's powerful. And you're going to the University of South Dakota. What's your vision? What do you want to get out of your education?
I think that what I want to get out of my education is definitely learning. I love to learn, even outside of my major or minor. I love to study things that I don't usually would go after. I think that in life, learning never stops. You learn every day how to regulate your emotions, how to talk to people, how to make a community, how to love. And I think that in learning, even about specific kind of categories or majors or minors, allows you to grow. And I think that growth doesn't just stop because you reach a goal or a diploma or degree. You keep going. So I just want to keep growing as a person and growing in my career.
And what's your vision for your career?
So right now, I am a major in criminal justice with a minor in sociology, with a pre-law emphasis. So I'm an aspiring attorney. I definitely do want to go into human rights advocacy for sure, making sure that there's advocacy across the world for women and children, one of our most vulnerable populations. Youth and women are 100% targeted across the world when it comes to wars, when it comes to our history lessons. You can see that women are and children are the ones that are more susceptible to harm.
Mm,
So I think in working with human rights relations, ensuring that that kind of diplomacy goes out is one of my goals for sure.
powerful goal. And you had another goal this year, which you actually achieved. Oh, I mean, you achieved. This is one of many goals you've achieved, but what was it like to give a TEDx talk?
Oh, it was so nerve-wracking. Like, it was so I was the youngest in the cohort. I believe the only one in her 20s at the time to even give that talk. And I've been striving to actually give a TED Talk since the TEDx Youth in Sioux Falls came out. I applied, I didn't get that. I mean, I was very discouraged actually to even apply to this one because I said, what expertise could I possibly bring as an undergrad university student to the TEDx stage with people in the audience that have years of wisdom on me? I mean, come on. What does a 20-year-old have to teach a bunch of people that are kind of excelled in life, you know? So I was very worried. I honestly was very worried in the early application stage. I was like, shoot, should I even apply? Honestly. But I kind of took that leap of faith and I said, you know what? If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. I submitted my best application that I could, a lot of revisions, obviously. And it was just nerve wracking, even going up on that stage.
I saw your TED Talk and you didn't seem nervous at all.
Oh, that's a lot of masking. I honestly I used to do speech and debate in high school, so speech in particular, I would do oral and terp. So what I learned from my amazing coach, Virginia, she taught me that I needed to blur my eyes just a little bit so I don't see anybody's face or look
How?
into the dark abyss in the background and I'll be fine. I would at times when I did want a heavy hitter to look at some people and make sure that they get my message in the front row. But even in the back row, I couldn't see. So I just kind of looked out a little bit, make sure to look at the cameras, spot the cameras a little bit. And yeah, that's probably one of my biggest tips.
Yeah, it's good to know. So your talk was is entitled "The Power of Conversation," and in the talk you talk about a conversation where you were working at a hotel and you had a guest come in. Could you tell a little? Could you tell that story, please?
Yeah, no, of course. Excuse me. When I was starting to write this piece, The Power of Conversation, that was the one story that I did want to emphasize on, which is implicit bias that always happens. No matter how many people think they're not prejudiced or they don't have kind of a hidden connotation in their minds, even though you don't say it out loud, it still presides in someone's head or someone's mind. It might be how they grew up or what kind of internet they watch or content they watch on their phones, but it's implicit bias that I really wanted to hone in on, even if there's no intent behind it.
And what does implicit bias mean?
Implicit bias means it's not intentional. So when somebody has that implicit bias in their mind, oh, for example, this happens a lot to Black women. Oh, they see somebody or a Black woman with hair and they believe that it's not theirs. So that's kind of implicit bias that a lot of people have of Black women generally don't have a lot of hair or they're bald or some type of stuff like that. So
Hmm?
that would be an example. But it's the story that you're speaking about within my talk. I met the guest named Mark. I kind of just made up the word Mark. His name actually wasn't, spoiler alert, his name was not actually Mark, guys. I made it up, but I didn't want to drop his name or anything just in case it went viral. I did not want him to look at my face and be like, that's the girl that checked me in. Oh my gosh. I did not want to get sued. But, on a more positive note, I think a lot of people took the story in a good light. But I was working at Marriott. This was, I believe, my freshman summer. So my freshman summer transitioning into my sophomore year, I was working at Marriott.
College, right?
Yeah. Yes,
Obviously.
college. And I worked that job for a little bit over a year, but in that time frame, I was full time. So I met a lot of people, different perspectives, different, all that stuff. And he happened to walk in on my lesser busy nights. So we had more of a conversation. He was a very nice gentleman. He wasn't the kind of rude type or anything like that. Nothing that you would expect from the conversation that I put inside of my TEDx. We kind of had a dialogue conversation. He asked me, "Where are you from?" I said, "Ethiopia, Africa." And he kind of looked at me dead in the eye and said, "Wow, you speak English really well for someone that's not born here." And honestly, in that moment, I kind of reverted back to my elementary school mindset of, wow, I haven't heard this in so long. And I wondered, maybe I should shrink back into the kind of shadows that I was in when I was in elementary and middle school. Maybe I should just let him say that to me and just let it happen and just let it go and let him walk away. But the high school side of me came out, and I said, enough is enough. And I honestly stood my ground and I said, I know you mean that as a compliment, but when you say that, it actually makes me feel like I don't belong here. And I've lived here for 16 or 15 years of my life at that point. And we had a dialogue that was open and true. And I didn't add that into my text just because of time restraints, but it was free flowing and it was amazing. Very eye opening to him as well, is what I got from that interaction.
So he was open to hearing he, he was open to hearing how you experience what he said.
Yes, he was very open. I think that's a huge factor of how a conversation should go. It's the ability to listen to the uncomfortableness of another person without putting your emotions or feelings first. I think that's what a lot of people forget, that in a conversation, sometimes, and I know it's hard to hear, sometimes you have to put your feelings and emotions second so that you are willing to be able to listen to what the person across from you has to say. And I think that's the number one thing that we've been forgetting so much nowadays, is that we've become so selfish in the fact that we believe that our opinion is the right opinion no matter what.
It's a delicate dance. What do you y- what do you think about this? Because as you say that, it occurs to me that we as a listener don't want to repress our emotions and say they don't exist, but how do we is there a way we can be aware of our own emotions but still put them second?
Yeah, I think you put it right into good words, Jason. It's the aspect of finding balance. And I think that's what a lot of people lack, is the balance of making sure that they acknowledge how they're feeling in the conversation while also being open to what another person is saying in front of them. And I'm not saying in the fact of always put your emotions second or always put yourself second. I don't want to kind of put that out there, but it's more so acknowledging the fact that a person from across from you, sitting across from you, has so many different kind of mindsets or cultures that you probably don't even know about, that you're judging on the preface of your own experiences and your own emotions. So, for example, I was an intern at the Department of Corrections for a while, for about 8 months this past year. So I frequently sat in front of people that have had different life choices than I will ever have. I've sat in front of people that have done horrendous things to children, to women, people that murderers. I've sat in front of all of them, basically. And hearing their stories, hearing how they ended up there, and hearing kind of why they did what they did, I had to learn how to put away my own biases of how I feel about certain things to ensure that they get the justice or, the rights that they need and accommodations that they need within the facility itself. So, in kind of learning from that internship, I realized that even those lessons can be learned on the outside as well. You don't have to be forced to be in an environment like that to learn it. It might be a little bit quicker just because I had to kind of pick up the pace of it. But it really did show that that's what we need right now.
What did you do within yourself when you were sitting across from someone who had done an horrendous thing, and your emotions were like, I want to tell them. I want to tell them that this is not right. I want to tell them this is not okay.
Yeah.
Like, how do you do it?
Honestly, sometimes you don't, honestly. There's times where I had to get up and leave the room because I just didn't feel comfortable in conducting kind of an intake interview or anything like that with the person across from me, just seeing their file. But also a lot of, without getting into details just because of the
Oh,
confidentiality of
yeah,
it,
of course.
but you just see their case files or what they've done, etc., their court kind of documents, and you see that a lot of the charges or the cases that you have in front of you don't show the full story. Unfortunately, when you see the cases in front of you as an intern, you don't really go read into it. You just kind of do what your supervisors tell you. But honestly, putting aside my emotions was the number one toughest task for me because it is exhausting institution to be a part of. All the case studies that they do on correctional officers is 100% true. And I wasn't even directly kind of with the inmates every single day. I would do a lot of paperwork, but, occasionally meet with them. But it is mentally taxing. So you have to work on yourself on the outside as well.
Wow. Wow. As we wrap up, I want to ask you about something we didn't even touch on when we talked before. Tell me about civic impact initiatives, LLC, please.
Yeah, of course. It is a business that I'm a founder and managing member of at the moment. It is still in the woodworks, so more to come. But it's kind of just a soft launch on my LinkedIn of something that me and my co-developer are both developing for Sioux Falls right now, and making sure that youth and young people in Sioux Falls are grown into civic action, making sure that their voice has a purpose, and making sure that the ideas that they have aren't restricted to just ideas, but also implementation within the Sioux Falls community or broader. So it's more to come, Jason, I promise.
The ideas they have aren't restricted to just being ideas. I love that phrasing. And your slogan is I found was turning ideas into civic action. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
So on my show, I talk a lot about the power of doing our imperfect best, and to me, doing my imperfect best means I have a vision, a dream of what I want to create in the world, and when I go for it, very often, mistakes happen, frustrations, uncertainties happen, and instead of letting that stop me, I try to let that inspire me and try to learn from that and to move again forward. What does doing your imperfect best mean to you, Afomiya?
Honestly, making sure that I guess I take care of myself, I would say, or making sure that I think the I think that a lot of people put perceptions out and like visions out of what they actually are to other people and not showing what they're actually going through. So I think that showing my imperfect best to other people is definitely like a step forward. So I think that in claiming like I don't have it all together, I know I'm 20 and I've been like doing all these things, but there's always like a back show of shadows that always kind of follow through. And I think that's definitely one of the things that I want to project out.
Thanks so much for your vision, for all that you are doing to advocate for so many groups and to advocate for the best in yourself. You're inspiring.
Thank you so much, Jason, and thank you so much for having me on here. It's amazing.
Um, you're welcome, and please stay on the line as I wrap up. It just takes a bit to upload, but thanks everyone for tuning in and for listening to Afomiya's stories and perspectives, and I hope that you're inspired, and I hope you're challenged. I mean, I know I'm very inspired by what Afomiya said, and then I feel a challenge to step up to claim my voice more, to advocate more for what I believe in. So thank you for tuning in and considering this, and tu- and please tune in next week for another episode. But if you're watching in 1,000 years, you'll probably have to watch reruns because I'll be gone by then. And until next time we meet, thanks for watching, and remember to smile.